This is the last wrestling podcast, because if everyone else can have a wrestling podcast, why not me? This week I'm looking back at WWE's first Women's Royal Rumble match and seeing if I can book it better, because I'm a wrestling fan, so I automatically think that I know better than the people who actually get paid for this stuff. Okay, I admit I thought I was being a bit pessimistic last episode when I declared that the Women's Rumble match didn't matter, quote-unquote, because Ronda Rousey could just walk out, point at a sign, and get herself booked on WrestleMania. Turns out I was not the only one who thought so. Since the Rumble, several members of WWE's women's division and a few well-respected wrestling journalists have voiced similar complaints. Mainly that Rousey's debut sort of overshadowed Asuka's victory and the concept of the Women's Rumble itself, since the point of the match was to earn a WrestleMania title shot, and she literally just walked into one. It's important to note that none of the criticism I've read has been directed at Rousey herself or her mere presence in WWE, just at the way WWE has decided to book her. There may be more direct criticism of Ronda Rousey out there that I haven't read, but I'm just going on what I've got for the moment, so please forgive any lack of completeness here. Well, criticizing the writing over the performer is what the Last Wrestling Podcast is all about. So let's see if I can rebook this thing into something that makes a little bit more sense. But first, a quick word from our sponsor.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Well, Valentine's Day is coming up fast. Do you still need the perfect gift for the most worthy recipient? Well, fear not, because ProOizen.com has you covered. ProOizen has the widest range of delivery-based revenge schemes on the internet, from mild diuretics and wilted flowers, to photoshopped revenge porn, to their traditional and ever-popular begging for death package. ProOizen.com guarantees the perfect revenge on your ex. Whether it's an ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, or ex-non-binary partner, ProOizen goes the extra mile. They do in-depth research into what kind of revenge will hurt your ex the most. Do they have a deadly or dangerous allergy? An old trauma or psychological scar that can be ripped open? A rap sheet that they've somehow managed to hide from their employers? ProOizen's crack research team will find out and compose up to 3 separate, distinct revenge schemes just for you to pick from. Now, I know what you're saying, but Ryu-sensei, I've tried other internet-based revenge services, and they always turn out to be incompetent gun nuts or FBI stings. Well, fear not, my friends, because ProOizen.com has thought of everything. It says right there on their homepage, "We are not cops, we would have to tell you if we were." Best of all, as part of their Valentine's Revenge sale, if you enter my code "This is not a real thing," all one word, at checkout, you'll receive 20% off of your first revenge scheme. But you have to hurry, because this offer is only good through Valentine's Day. After that, it's gone for another year. That's ProOizen.com. ProOizen.com, when you care enough to hurt the very most. And we're back with my attempt to rebook the ending of the 2018 Women's Royal Rumble match. First, a few ground rules. Since any competent booker books backwards, we're going to start with what appears to be the same end goal that WWE has. Asuka wins the Rumble and faces the Raw Women's Champion at Mania. Ronda Rousey debuts and faces Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's title. Since these are really good ideas, we're going to keep them. I'm also going to keep the majority of the match, since it was pretty good when exorcised from its original and surrounding story and context. Which is not intended to be the backhand compliment it sounded like now that I read this out loud. Okay, we pick up things after Trish Stratus enters the Rumble at number 30. The match continues as it did in reality for about 90 seconds, until the countdown clock begins again. The announcers react as if this is a technical glitch or something. Maybe we even have, if he can muster the acting potential to do this, have Michael Cole, try to yell at the truck, as if he's off mic when he really isn't. Anyway, the countdown clock hits 0, the buzzer sounds, and Stephanie McMahon's music hits. Oh boy. with a coy little smile and a, "Hey, I never said there would only be 30 entrants, did I?" She stands up from commentary to head into the ring. Now, this plays off of two pretty well-established facts. One, the WWE never, to my knowledge, and again, maybe I missed something. They put out 5 hours of television, I can't keep up. I don't think they ever expressly said that there would be 30 entrants in the Rumble as part of the build-up. They said they were going to have an all-women's Royal Rumble, it was going to be historic, blah, 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 blah. But there was never I'd never heard the number 30. Second, there was no reason for Stephanie to be out there, other than she wanted to be a commentator in the first ever Women's Rumble match, and she's a woman, so okay. Yeah, that's not good enough. Everything you do on a wrestling show should have a purpose to it. This is, in regular fiction, thank you, Sir Terry Pratchett, this is known as the law of conservation of plot. Everything should matter, and I'm making Stephanie Chekhov's commentator. Furthermore, this is the exact type of self-aggrandizing bullshit stunt that her character would try to pull, so it's in character. I think it was Mark Twain, though I'm not entirely sure, who said, "Real people are different from fictional characters. Real people have the luxury of acting out of character. Fictional characters do not." So Stephanie stands up, walks right past Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, who also had no storyline reason to be where they were. Stephanie walks past them, they take a look at her, look at each other, nod, drop their belts on their chairs, not on the ground, and proceed to physically block Stephanie from entering the ring. They explain in loud and hopefully easily micable voices that they're not going to let her ruin this historic moment. We've already said that 100 times tonight, so why not add another? They're not going to let her ruin this extraordinary, historic moment with her nonsense. Well, Stephanie McMahon is not used to being told no, just ask Dusty Rhodes, and she threatens to strip Alexa Bliss of her championship if she doesn't get out of her way. Now remember, Stephanie is the commissioner of Monday Night Raw. So she has the authority to do exactly what she's saying here. Bliss, being a heel and a bit of a coward, despite her big mouth, backs down. Charlotte, however, steps up and points out, "You're not my boss, bitch." Because she's not. Stephanie officially has no authority over SmackDown. Charlotte, who, and I'm going by Wikipedia here, so grain of salt, Charlotte, at 5'10", glares down at Stephanie, 5'8", who, in my version of this, even though that's not really what happened, is wearing flat shoes for the first time since about 1999. She glares down at Stephanie, imposes her will physically, doesn't actually touch her yet. Meanwhile, in the ring, the match is continuing in a wait-for-something-to-happen mode, which happens a lot in the Rumble. Maybe somebody will tease trying to throw somebody over the top, or more likely everybody will find a corner and just punch and kick until something happens. So as Charlotte and Stephanie are staring each other down, out of nowhere, Alexa Bliss hits Charlotte from behind with the Raw Women's title. She's a heel, remember. This is all an attempt to curry favor with her boss, Stephanie. An attempt that will later prove successful. We'll get to that in a minute. While all this has been going on, we've maybe had a couple eliminations, and we're down to the same final 5 in the ring that we had in real life. That is Trish Stratus, the boss, Sasha Banks, Asuka, and both of the Bella Twins. Now, all of these characters are technically babyfaces. Remember that. Although the fans would probably riot if either one of the Bellas won this match. And Sasha Banks has been part of a semi-slow burn, sort of heel turn thingy with Bayley for what feels like about 25 years. Well, Charlotte disposed of, and Bliss being shown her place, Stephanie makes her way oh so slowly to the ring steps. Soaking in every second of this, and secretly hoping that one or more women are eliminated before she actually crosses the ropes and gets into the match, when suddenly somebody in a hoodie jumps the barricade, tackles Stephanie to the floor and proceeds to rain punches down on her head like a human thunderstorm. This is obviously Ronda Rousey, as will be revealed when Alexa Bliss tries to help Stephanie and pulls off the hoodie in an attempt to pull this mystery woman off of Stephanie. Once Bliss realizes who she's dealing with, she runs like a scalded dog, to steal a phrase from a much better wrestling commentator and announcer than I have ever been. All 5 women in the match pause when they realize what's just happened. Now, that happens way too often with the women's division. That's what started this whole mess with Stephanie's announcement. But in this case, Ronda Rousey just showed up. That's worth stopping and figuring out what the heck is going on. So we have a reasonable excuse for it. So all the women pause when they realize what just happened. And they also realize that Stephanie is technically in the Rumble match, even if she hasn't entered the ring yet. Oh, hello, Ty Dillinger. What are you doing here? They also realize that chances to give Stephanie a very well-earned beating don't come around every day, so they yell at Ronda to give them Stephanie. Rousey, who is a wrestling fan, knows who all of these women are and respects them. She figures, okay, shrugs her shoulders, picks up what's left of Stephanie McMahon, and rolls her into the ring. Each woman takes turns hitting Steph with either their, or in the case of the Bellas, their husbands, finishers. Whenever possible, each woman does something to remind us of why they hate Stephanie personally, or the McMahons in general. Brie does a yes chant, Trish Stratus barks like a dog, etc., etc. Although, thinking back on it, Vince McMahon probably doesn't want you to remember when he made Trish bark like a dog, but it fits the story, so I'm just going to leave it in. Eventually, they gang up and just throw her over the top rope to the floor, where security or medical staff or whoever escort her from ringside. Ronda, who's been outside watching all of this, bows graciously to the women in the ring and takes her leave back through the crowd from whence she came. From this point, the match continues as it did in real life, with Asuka winning. She points to the WrestleMania sign to end the show. Follow-up. The next night on Raw, and this is something that's going to be a little bit anti-WWE and maybe anti-short-term logic, but it works in the long term, trust me. The next night on Raw, there is no mention of Ronda Rousey by order of Stephanie McMahon, nor is there any appearance by Stephanie herself. At the beginning of the show, Michael Cole or Corey Graves or somebody says, either to the camera or on the voiceover, "We have been instructed by WWE management that we are not permitted to discuss the unfortunate circumstances that happened toward the end of the Women's Royal Rumble match last night." At which point, who have they got doing the other role? It's not Percy Jackson. Percy Watson, or who is it? Byron Saxon, that's it. They have Byron Saxon point out, yeah, by WWE management, we mean Stephanie McMahon. But, let's just leave that where it is. So, no talking about Ronda Rousey because the focus of the show is Asuka. In fact, Asuka starts the show, and preferably in English, because she's better at that than the writers seem to think she is, says that no one is ready for Asuka. However, any woman who wants to prove themselves as a worthy opponent for her can try by winning the first Women's Championship Elimination Chamber match. Because, by definition, the first woman to win a chamber match will be ready for WrestleMania. Now, this serves two purposes. One, it puts the focus right back on Asuka where it belongs. And two, it sets up the chamber in a more logical sense. Because no one is ready for Asuka. That's not just a catchphrase. That's the storyline right now. She's been undefeated for a couple of years now. So the idea that most of the women's roster on Raw are ready to fight Asuka, no, they're not. Alexa Bliss certainly isn't. She's a cowardly heel. And this also can later be used to explain why she didn't go after Charlotte, why she didn't hop Brands. Because Charlotte is a dream match for Asuka. However, Asuka wants more than one credible challenger, or more than one credible champion, more than one credible opponent. So she wants to take these girls, and I use that in the pejorative term referring to an adult woman. She wants to take these girls, throw them into the Elimination Chamber, and break them down, forge them in the crucible of combat. And one comes out ready for Asuka. She wants a challenge. And this can be explained as part of the build-up to the chamber match. Now, the following week, and we'll get back to Ronda Rousey in a minute, but just going to finish the Asuka part here. The following week, 2 weeks after, a week and a day after the Rumble, Stephanie will repay Alexa Bliss for her attempt to help her by guaranteeing that Alexa will be the last woman to enter the chamber, because Alexa doesn't want to defend her title in an Elimination Chamber match. Are you crazy? That's incredibly dangerous. So Stephanie says, look, you're in the chamber match. There's nothing I can do about that, but I'm exercising my authority as commissioner. I'm overruling the general manager. It's not going to be a random draw this year. You're going to start in a pod, and your pod will be the last one to open. Now, whether or not Stephanie keeps her word, that's another story that you can go off in another direction. Back on the focus. Meanwhile, on SmackDown, and this is the first SmackDown after the Rumble, Shane McMahon reveals that he was behind Ronda Rousey being at the Rumble and behind security allowing her to jump the barricade. Because in WWE, if a stupid fan tries to jump the barricade, they're going to get tackled by security, they're going to get their asses kicked by the wrestlers, and they're going to jail for the night. So we need a storyline explanation for why Rousey was able to get away with what she did, and basically, Shane McMahon smartened up the security. He told them, look, this might be happening if a blonde woman, is she blonde? Sort of mousy brown, I guess, or whatever. If a woman matching Ronda Rousey's description tries to jump the barricade, give it a few minutes before you tackle her. Because Shane figured that his sister's enormous ego would make her do something stupid like entering herself into the Rumble, and he didn't want that. SmackDown's the land of opportunity, and letting the women main event the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, second biggest show of the year, sorry SummerSlam, it is. Having the women main event this show, that's the ultimate opportunity for the women's division. And SmackDown is the land of opportunity, blah, 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 blah. So he bought himself and the fans an insurance policy in the form of Ronda Rousey. However, there was a price to pay for her services, for her acting essentially as Shane's hired gun. Shane had to give her a shot at whichever champion the Rumble winner didn't choose. This sets up a logical business reason for why Ronda is going to face Charlotte. Now, we can also mention a little bit later, probably not part of the same, in-the-ring promo, because that's probably what this is going to be. We can mention that the WWE Board of Directors approved a potential Raw Women's title match if a SmackDown, or if the winner of the Rumble chose the SmackDown title. Because Shane cannot make Raw matches, the same way Stephanie cannot make SmackDown matches. So we go over their heads to the Board of Directors. Fortunately, as it turned out, it just so happened to turn out that Asuka chose the Raw Women's title, meaning that Shane can make the Ronda Rousey-Charlotte match purely on his own say-so. So this sets up Ronda versus Charlotte and Asuka versus whoever wins the Chamber at WrestleMania. Everything has a purpose. We have a storyline explanation for the weirdness, mainly Ronda Rousey coming out of nowhere, all of a sudden being in the WWE and getting a title shot for doing nothing. Well, that's explained now as behind-the-scenes manipulation and, the fair price for stopping Stephanie. And Stephanie's got enough heel heat I mean, seriously, the woman is thermonuclear, that, having Stephanie finally get her comeuppance, to use some unfortunate parlance, finally show some ass, means that the fans are probably going to accept, admittedly, a justification that's a bit far-fetched, but they're going to suspend their disbelief, hopefully, because they're trying to make this make sense, and Stephanie got her ass kicked for 5 minutes. Okay, the only other note I've got here, as far as Asuka versus Chamber winner, I would either go with Nia Jax to set up the Unstoppable Force meets the Immovable Object story, and yes, I know they already wrestled in NXT. That was then, this is now. Both, well, maybe not Asuka, because she was already pretty good, but Nia Jax has gotten a lot better since then. Or we go with Asuka versus Alexa as the cowardly heel who gets her comeuppance. Either way, I have Asuka win at WrestleMania, keep her undefeated streak alive, and I'd actually keep that streak alive all the way until next year's WrestleMania 2019, when she can face maybe Ronda Rousey, she can face Charlotte, or whoever, and it's the dream match that never happened. You spend a year building up to this potentially Mania main event worthy women's championship match, the Streak versus the champion, or something like that. So that's how I would have booked the finish to the 2018 Women's Royal Rumble match and the immediate follow-up. Was it better than WWE managed? Was it complete crap? Sound off in the comments section below, and I'll read any interesting or funny comments out on a future episode of the Last Wrestling Podcast. Also, make sure to take a look at the Animated Wrestling League, my personal CAW wrestling league, where I get to put all these theories and ideas into practice. But for right now, witty sign-off.